Welcome to the UNSECURITY podcast. Each week, Evan and Brad give an inside look at current information security news, breaches, best practices, and other things you should know to improve your information security. Here are your hosts, FRSecure's Evan Francine and Brad Nye.
Hey there, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the UNSECURITY podcast. This is episode 108. The date is December 2nd, 2020, and I'm your host, Brad Nye. Joining me as usual is my good friend and coworker, Evan Francine. Good morning, Evan.
Good morning, Brad. Nice to have you back, man.
Yeah. So I'll share a little bit with everyone what happened. So I had labyrinthitis, and which is basically the labyrinth is the fluid sac in your inner ear that affects balance. And when I had that sinus and ear infection in October, apparently the viral infection got into that, and it can just sit there and randomly strike. So on the 17th, about noon, I was like, something's wrong. And, mentioned it right before the show. My 14-year-old came in the office and was like, "Ooh, Dad, you look awful." And, about 2:00, my wife, the nurse, ended up saying, "No, I'm not taking you to urgent care. I'm calling 911. So when the nurse says I'm doing that, you don't really argue. But it was, I was pretty much completely out of it from about noon on the 17th through really the following Sunday. And then that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of last week, and was like, if you've been on cruises, that first day where you just kind of feel like off it and kind of you just stumble, or you feel the rocking of the boat. That's basically how I felt all the time. From the 17th the 18th on the medicine. When the medicine would wear off, there's about a half-hour window where it would kind of stop or wind down, and then another half hour where it would start to pick up. So it was about an hour. I was basically unable to do anything.
Dang, man. So it's called labyrinthitis?
Yep. Yeah. So it's basically for anyone who's had vertigo, and it's bad on steroids, and it sticks around for, 1 to 2 weeks, and full recovery can take 2 months. So even now I'll be standing and all of a sudden just feel like I'm falling or lose my balance. I have to take a step to recover, I guess. I don't know the right way to put it, but I'll be walking and just I was joking to one of the neighbors. It's they see me walking down the street and be picking up the kids from the bus. Be like, "Why is he drunk at 4:00 in the afternoon, stumbling around?"
Since 2020, man. I think half the population is drunk by afternoon.
Yeah, I am so done with 2020.
Well, add labyrinthitis to your list.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So we're not sharing video today because that's another trigger, right? So.
Yeah. I've found the last couple of days here that having the video on and trying to watch that and the screens enough, or I was offline for basically 7 days, except for just kind of texting people to give updates, because I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't look at an iPad or the phone or anything. I would put on shows and then put on my, a hat, pull the brim down so I couldn't really see anything. I just listened to things. So it was movies that I've seen or shows that I'd watched a bunch of times just to kind of get through the day, because I couldn't actually watch the screen.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I'm glad you're back, man. And I'm glad that it sounds like things are going to eventually return to normal. Things are better today. Last week, I had to go solo on the show again, which is I totally get it. It's just awkward as hell because, I'm sitting there talking and I'm like, yeah, having a conversation with myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever.
I would have loved to have been able to
No,
do
I
that,
get it,
but
man.
yeah, the fun part of it was the treatment is you basically just treat and handle the dizziness so that you don't feel like you're going to be violently ill all the time. And so it was like meclizine, which is basically, it's a cousin of Dramamine for the motion sickness stuff,
Okay.
and Valium. So I just basically slept for the 3 or 4 days and then was pretty kind of cut the dosage down. But yeah, I just didn't care too much. So it was a nice, I guess, if you're going to suffer through it, at least be pretty chilled out.
Yeah. Suffer through it high, man. Why not?
Oh, dude, I would not wish that on anyone. It was not fun.
Well, there's probably some people I would maybe wish it on, but that's a whole nother show.
Yeah. Yeah. That's part of the security shit show.
Or maybe that's part of CNN or Fox News.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Well, anyway, it's your show to lead fourth quarter, man. So on top of all of that, fourth quarter is always crazy. For people who are, security people or people, especially in information security consulting, this is the craziest time of year, man. And so you're having to deal with that and this labyrinthitis thing, man. How's that? It's got to be nuts. So are you backlogged right now?
I signed on Monday and I honestly don't know the exact count. I had well over 800 emails to try and get through.
That's a weekend, man.
Yeah. Well, not to mention, the week and a half of work that I missed. But
right.
Yeah, it was, it's well, I'll get caught up at some point, like in, February or March.
There you go. Well, and for people who know me, know that my son, Joe, is also a penetration tester. I like to think he's a good one because I put a pressure on him, but I don't know. We'll let Oscar tell us. But I was talking to him this weekend. He came over for a little bit and just, hey, how you doing, man? You busy? Mm-hmm. He's like 100% capacity. Yep. Like I have no time. And I'm like, well, then what are you doing here? No, I didn't say that. But now they're the team is working under. If you want to take on extra work, you can get paid extra, right?
Yeah, kind of like a little bit of a spiff program where if you're going to work nights and weekends to take on the extra work, we'll give a little bonus to you for giving up your personal time.
See, I like that, and you make it so then it's not mandatory.
No,
and if I want a few extra bucks for Christmas, I can do that.
Yep, yeah, and. Oscar's been fantastic with managing that team too and making sure like, hey, there's no pressure. If you have something to do, don't worry about it. If you want to take it on, let me know and we can schedule something. But yeah, I think the tech services, the pen testing team is pretty much booked through like mid-January at this point. They're about 6 weeks out, I think. And then I know consulting team was at 92-ish% capacity across all of the analysts through at least through the end of the year. That was the 16th of November. So that's been 2 weeks. I'm not sure exactly where they're at this point.
Yeah, like I said, man, it's that time of year. Well, it's the same way every year.
This year has been interesting in that, with COVID and everything shutting down, for kind of like April, May, June, we were like nobody wanted to do anything because they were trying to figure out how to work remotely and just keep afloat, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, now go, everyone at the same time. We need our stuff that we didn't do 3 months ago on top of our standard, like Q4, everybody freaking out to get stuff done at the end of the year. So it's been an interesting year.
That's good. It'll keep you up out of trouble. You got to keep them busy. It's better to be busy than it is to be not busy.
True. Although I won't lie, not how I wanted to get some time off. But
I don't know, man. All drugged up, chilling out. I don't know.
Yeah. No, it wasn't not cool.
Well, there's been a lot of stuff going on. So last week was Thanksgiving. It seems like, it by really fast. We didn't do the security show last week because it was Thanksgiving. There's 1,000 things going on, in my world. It seems like, between development stuff and, I guess just yesterday, wrote, I don't know if you saw it, the holiday shopping safety checklist. Did you see that?
No. Oh,
well, it's probably the best piece of work I've ever done.
All right, I'm going to look at it right now.
While we're talking.
Yeah.
Love it.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
In a few weeks, about a month, I think I'll be heading out of town again to write another book. You and I didn't get a chance to finish our book.
No.
Or really even get started much because of COVID this year. So, we'll talk more about that, I think, in future shows about what the book is. And I think it's going to be real helpful to people. It'll be sort of a handbook on how to do virtual chief information security officer work. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. And, what's interesting, I think it'll also be good, not just virtual, but just for CISOs in general, right? People that want to run their own program or are trying to run their own program. But yeah, it'll be primarily focused on the virtual piece.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to send you a picture. Speaking of Thanksgiving, I smoked a turkey. So I was very glad I was feeling well enough to do that. So I did this. Where'd you get your rolling papers for a turkey? I did the spatchcocking where you cut the backbone out and get it flat. So it was so good. But
all right, well, we're back to information security at home, right?
Yeah. We were planning on doing this last week, but like it says in the notes, 2020 won't stop 2020. So I'm talking about, kind of what we do. Why is this a big deal? And how can normal people or what can other people do to protect themselves?
Yeah. Well, and it's, that's the thing, man. I mean, at home, nobody is responsible for your information security more than you are.
Right.
Nobody can stop you from clicking links unless you're going to stop yourself from clicking links. Nobody's going to keep your kids safe, more than you should.
Right.
As much as I'd love to help you more, I can't.
Right.
I'm busy trying to keep my own kids safe.
And we've said it, I mean, how many times, what if you see people clicking links at work, they're doing it at home. So we want to get good, what they do at home and what they do at work are going to be the same. That's why it's so important for training, awareness, and, trying to help people because, if they lose if their bank account gets drained, do you think that's going to affect their work? Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Well, so what are some of the things? Now, you and I are security people. We do this stuff, for a living. And I think what makes that different, it's just like There's one of two ways to go about it. I think of some of my friends who are auto mechanics, and some of them have the worst running cars on the road because they don't care. They know that if it breaks down, I can just fix it.
Wasn't it? It's like the cobbler's shoes, right? It's always you always have the worst of whatever you're doing.
Yeah. So I think some of us, in this industry, the way we secure ourselves at home, it's whatever. And then others of us, I think, are a little more paranoid and probably maybe go too far.
I'm probably more on the and maybe not call it paranoid, but definitely on that side of it versus the
Yeah, I think having kids makes a big difference too, right?
Yeah.
Or having, family at home, because I might trust myself pretty well, but, my 16-year-old daughter, I kind of want to protect her. I kind of want to do whatever I can to make sure that she's safe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, I think when we're looking at it immediately, what are some of the really, I would call it, I guess, quick wins that people could do? And I think the most obvious one to me is just make sure you change the default passwords on your Wi-Fi or your router. Like, if you haven't done that, start there.
Yeah.
Don't worry about anything else. Just start with that.
And defaults always make it too easy for, the bad guys to get in.
Right.
I think it's a great start. And I think it's, sit and have a discussion with your family. A lot of times we don't even talk about this stuff. You don't sit around the dinner table and talk about, hey, tell me about your passwords. You keeping those legit?
Right.
And it's saying you don't have to, obviously say that. I was joking, but just talk about, what do you do online? Talk to your daughter, talk to your son, talk to your wife. You may find that, I don't know, she's shopping. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. There are all kinds of things that could be happening, but it's just this conversation. We just have this ignorance about us sometimes where, I don't know, especially this time of year, right? You're going to be plugging in probably some new IoT devices, maybe a new TV that's it's going to be a smart TV because they don't make dumb ones anymore.
Yeah.
Do a little research before you start plugging things in. But I agree with you, man. The biggest thing is update and change defaults. Keep things, patched.
Yeah. That's a good point. Updating, making sure that you do apply security patches when they become available. Although, unfortunately, with IoT, you just don't see that very often. No. When it's funny, this last what was it, last week? The Senate, I think, just passed the first federal legislation on IoT security. It needs to be signed by the president before it becomes law, but that's kind of exciting. IOXT Alliance, I think, led kind of the charge on that. Nice.
I would expect IoT to get better in time, but between now and then, you're going to have to suffer through some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think understanding. Well, it's going to be interesting for a while. I think I would personally look at what a company's update policy is, or what do they say before I buy something. I do have the Arlo system, and they're actually pretty good about pushing out updates to their app and firmware for the cameras themselves. Mm-hmm. So to me, that's important, right? Like, I don't have, my dishwasher is not online. It has a Wi-Fi connection if I wanted it, but I don't do it. They don't have good updates, so it doesn't get to go online.
Right.
And what's crazy is, why does your dishwasher need to be online?
Well, I know. Well, they call this, smart homes, right?
Yeah.
And really, if you're not configuring your things well, if you don't know how to use the stuff, your smart home is actually really stupid. You have a
Right.
stupid home. Because just think about this. Every time I plug something into my home network and it calls somewhere, right? It goes out into the ether or the internet somewhere. You've got another connection into your home. And it's not like your old school physical connections where you knew who was in your home. You knew what was in your home at any given time.
Right.
With this transition to everything being digital, now you have no idea who's in your house every day. You think physical, but the digital can cause you just as much damage, if not more.
Yeah.
If an attacker's got control over my dishwasher or my washing machine or my garage door or my home security system or my camera surveillance, there's all sorts of things that they can do with that. And
right.
People are just kind of oblivious to this. They get, cool new gadget, blinky light thing that I can watch what's going on in my home on my iPhone. This is super cool. Yeah, but it's default passwords, and so is the attacker. The attacker's looking at the same thing you are.
Yeah.
Including you making love to your wife or your daughter, playing. It's a lot more dangerous than people think it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And like you said, people don't consider that. It's if you don't change those things and you put those cameras in your house. I personally, all mine are outside, so it's all what would be considered public anyway, right? I'm not going to put anything inside the house where I wouldn't want somebody to see it.
Right. Well, and there's that, and I'm sure you've secured your Arlo, video better than others. Some because even then, attackers can watch your comings and goings.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Well,
and then
not right now. I never.
They're going to steal something. No, not now, but
yeah,
eventually.
At some point, yeah. No, I agree. But I think also if you think about it is that risk assessment, right? If somebody is going to hack my cameras to see if I'm coming or going, it's going to be easier for them to just break a window to get in, So there is some level of of course, I changed all the default passwords. I don't even know the password. I use, LastPass for it. I have no idea what the actual password to log in to that is. It's, 20 something character random generated password.
Right.
But, there is some level of making sure you do those basics of, changing the defaults. And then at that point, it's like, well, if they hack that, I'm pretty well screwed at that point anyway.
Well, right. And I'm talking your everyday user,
right.
I'd have, zero concern really about, your own security or mine, because I do understand much of the risk. I don't plug things into my home network unless I understand what the hell it is and how I'm going to secure it, what it's talking to, what's talking to it. But most people don't do this stuff. Most people don't think the way we do. And it's not because of lack of intelligence or anything like that. It's just we do this for a living.
Well, and the same thing, like people that think of CPAs, right? They do their taxes a certain way and they know all the things. You and I are like, okay, sounds good to me, right? It's the same kind of concept across.
But the sad thing is now, I agree. But CPA is like a specialized skill, and so is some of the deeper information security stuff. But I'm talking basic security stuff. You know what I mean?
I think, but I guess how many people don't even think about balancing, every week or every month, validating and looking at their accounts and making sure that, hey, somebody hasn't gotten one of my cards and fraudulently charged things, So I think there is a kind of a linear or not linear. There is a comparison between the two of just the basics of finance, the CPA, and then basics of InfoSec and what we do.
Yeah, I mean, I see the comparisons in terms of that stuff, but the thing that actually pisses me off and sort of breaks my heart is my taxes don't lead to, my children being propositioned by some 45-year-old in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Very true.
My taxes don't lead to, privacy violations and things that I can never really get back, right? And some people may not care, but, let's say I have a camera surveillance thing in my, upstairs hallway, and my wife comes out of the bathroom naked, right, and somebody else sees my wife naked. Some people may not care about that, but you can't not. Yeah, it's like that is gone now. Whatever privacy you had for that, it's not there anymore.
Right. No, that's a good point. And, I think
one of the things I don't want people to do, man, is I don't want people to minimize this. I don't want people to think, whatever, it's somebody else's job. No, it's not. It's not your ISP's job. It's not your kid's job. It's nobody's job but yours. Nobody else should log into your router. Make sure your passwords are changed, and if you feel like tinkering around a little bit with the settings, go ahead and do that. But at a minimum, like that, the password, like, I don't know, who's your ISP?
I think MediaCom. I'm not even sure. I think it's MediaCom.
Mine here is name's escaping me now. Who's the big shoot?
That's funny.
CenturyLink.
Okay. I think neither of us actually know who we use.
Right. But here's the thing about CenturyLink. CenturyLink, when they install your router, they put your password for your router sticker underneath it. So for people who are listening who don't know how to change your password or even log into your password, log into your router, look there, right? Typically there's a sticker that says an IP address, right? It's a 4-octet numbers, right? So it's a number. I don't know. I lost count of how many numbers and dots that was. And then there's a password there, right? So open up a browser, type in that address. You'll get a prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Your username is probably going to be admin, and your password is going to be whatever the hell they put it at.
Yep.
Log in, change it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And change it to something, not just change it, but make it secure, right?
Right. And that's the beginning. So, and then if you're even a little bit more paranoid, like some of us, CenturyLink still has access to my router. You know what I mean? Even if I change the default password, they have a backdoor into my router. They do that for support purposes for people who, call them and nothing's working, whatever. I would suggest change, just getting rid of their router and putting your own in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like people having backdoors to my stuff, and maybe you don't mind because you trust, CenturyLink, but I don't trust CenturyLink.
If you look at it, if you lease their router, I mean, you're paying typically $10 a month for that, and you can get your own for less than it would cost you for 1 year of leasing. There's $90 to $150, whatever that is. And honestly, those are going to last you. The one I've got has lasted 4+ years at this point. I'd say
there's
$400.
There's no moving parts.
Right.
Things that don't have moving parts last a long, long, long time. But so the first thing to do, number one, change your default or change the password on your router.
Yeah, whatever your internet-facing device is, change your password.
Right. And if you don't know what your internet-facing device is, if you got DSL, follow the phone line, into a box that you don't recognize. That's your router.
Yep.
And same thing with coax on your, MediaCom, right?
Yeah. I mean, think of it typically like they're mostly black and a size of a book.
Yeah.
Figure out where you're at. And if you've gotten your own and you're not using the cable companies or your internet providers, just do a Google search for whatever device name it is, default password. And I mean, that's the easiest thing just to get into them.
Yeah. Another thing you can do is, if you don't feel comfortable with this stuff, ask a friend, call MediaCom, call CenturyLink, call your ISP and ask them for help too.
Right.
Right. Because this is just step number one of many, many more steps to come. And I know people can complain that it's so confusing and everything else like that. And I'm one of those hard love kind of people on this. You brought it on yourself. You keep plugging stuff into your network. You have this lust for technology, yet you don't know how to use it.
Right.
So if you feel overwhelmed by all the security stuff that you need to secure your home, a lot of that falls on you. A lot of it also falls on the vendor. That's a whole other issue, man. I mean, where vendors just continue to make crappy products from a security perspective. But, I think most people, 99% of people have no idea what's even on their home network. They think they do, but they don't.
Yeah. Which is, I want to argue with you, but no, you're probably right. And that's scary.
Right. Well, because I doubt, I was just, there's all kinds of tools you can use to find out what's on your home network. Because the next thing after you sort of secure the router is to try to figure out what's behind the router in your house.
Right.
Right. What things in your house are calling out to the internet? Don't worry about what these devices are talking to right now. Just figure out what the devices are.
Yeah.
And, I use, Nmap, which, it's free. If you feel comfortable using Nmap, just Google Nmap, find it, download it, and run it. See what you got.
Yeah.
You'll probably have a whole bunch of devices that will come up with these funky looking numbers, right? Hexadecimal things because it couldn't resolve itself to, a manufacturer ID. But at least and now you can go on a hunt, which is sort of fun if you make a game out of it.
Yeah.
I use.
Well, yeah.
You and I have we have a custom config kind of on our home networks. So it's, I actually have more than one and you have more than one network to find stuff on because we segment our network. But what would you say? 99% of people don't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go there yet.
Well, and you think about it and probably a lot of our listeners are, in security or IT, and they're like, well, but I do it. But you think of the fact that there's probably, that still leaves 300 million people that aren't doing it.
Well, that's one of the and that's a whole other topic too, is us security people and IT people, we actually expect, I think, sometimes other people to think like we do.
Yeah.
Other people to look at the world the same way. And it's like, no, they don't, and they never will.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there is that assumption of, well, everyone thinks this way because I do it. I think I was talking to somebody, gosh, I can't remember who it was. It was for work, right? A potential client. They were asking about some of the resources on the website, and they mentioned the CISSP. They said, well, there was some like training where I just have to buy the book. And we were talking about it, and I was like, look, even if you don't want to take the exam and you don't want to buy the book, just listen to the recordings. It will change how you think about things. And I think, there's got to be a better way for that information that is, I mean, let's be honest, it's painful sometimes, but how do we get that to the vast majority so that they start thinking of these things in a way that, they're going to be more secure and reduce their risk?
Well, I think we expect them. Well, one, we talk with our own clan a lot more than we talk to them. I don't sit down with my friend. I'll use Bobby as an example. My buddy Bobby, he's an iron worker, awesome dude. I don't sit down with him and talk to him very often about, hey man, tell me about your passwords on your iPhone. Let's talk about, good cyber hygiene. Yeah. He'd look at me like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
Because I actually have done that because I'm weird, but we talk to you and I talk about security all the time. Just about every time we get together, we're talking about either barbecue or, family stuff, things that we enjoy. It'll lead to some security conversation at some point.
Yep.
And then, but we speak that language fluently. When I go talk to Bobby, I can't use the same language.
No. Yeah. And I think part of the issue is, people that do speak this language just assume or look down on people that don't speak it. And that's a huge issue. Because
it is, man. It's so dangerous.
We need those people to be aware of these things because, I mean, realistically, it just makes our jobs easier. Well,
there's that. And aren't these the people that we serve that we're trying to protect? I'm not trying to protect me. I'm pretty well protected. I got my shit, excuse my language. I got my stuff together. Well, who I'm trying to protect is my buddy Bobby.
Right. Yeah.
And so if I want to try to protect my buddy Bobby, well, then I better learn to either speak his language or translate my language into his language, something that will resonate because, people, it's just, the problem just continues to get worse. We just keep, especially, this Christmas, I don't know how many IoT things and cool blinky light things will be plugged into people's homes, this holiday season, but it's going to be a lot.
Yeah. Well, and coming from a business perspective, with everyone being remote for who knows, probably another 3 to 6 months at least, if people even go back, what does that mean, right? What if they're plugging all these things into their home network and then connecting to a VPN into your corporate network? You're exposed to everything they've got plugged in. You have a vested interest in making sure they know and have good hygiene at home, security hygiene.
Well, it's funny, man, because, I talk to some people and they're like, oh, we got, XC endpoint protection in place or whatever the hell they got. I'm like, okay, so do we not know? Did we forget? Some people never knew, but did we forget how attackers actually work? They compromise a system, they elevate their privileges, they plant a backdoor so they can come back later, then they pivot. They pivot and they pivot until they find what it is they're looking for. Now that sometimes can be, a lot of those steps can be automated. Sometimes it's a manual process. So they may not waste their time. But if I find out that, Joe Blow is the CEO of big, huge company and Joe Blow is working at home and I just do a couple of little Google searches and find out where Joe Blow lives. and find Joe Blow's home network.
Yeah.
I mean, what a great opportunity for me to use Joe Blow's home network, you say a vulnerable Arlo or vulnerable whatever
Yes.
on Joe Blow's network that isn't properly
washer and
segmented.
dryer online with a back door into the entire network.
Right. And there's enough return on my investment as an attacker that I might spend a little extra time trying to figure out how I'm going to compromise endpoint protection or compromise, something, a misconfiguration potentially on the VPN, something.
Think about this. I mean, how many companies are letting people use their personal devices that they have no control over at all to connect in, right? We talking with people. Yeah, we have to let them use their own. We can't afford to buy laptops for everyone. Okay, so what controls do you have in place? What do you make recommendations for a good endpoint protection for those users that are using their own? How do you ensure they're getting patched, and
right?
What do you have in place to make sure that what that traffic coming in, is legitimate, and you're not getting Emotet and TrickBot and all the fun stuff coming in.
Right. It's crazy how, we've created so many just really convenient playgrounds everywhere. I was talking to a friend of mine about schools, and remote learning. Schools were already pretty poor at security, information security. And that was when they only had a few limited networks that they needed to protect, right? It was the physical boundaries were pretty well defined. It was, the campus.
Right.
Well, then you go to remote learning and your 3-4 campus networks now have exploded into a few thousand networks that you need to be cognizant of, maybe responsible for to some extent.
Yeah. And, I will, so I do have some sort of a little bit of a vested interest because I do VCSL for a school district. And I will say, it's not that they don't want to do the right thing. There's so many constraints from, manpower and budgetary issues. They're not funded. It's not that they don't want to. They don't have the resources to do it. And now, like you said, they're going from trying to protect one to, thousands. And they were already they already didn't have the resources to protect a couple. How do you expect them to do that?
Well, it doesn't. A lot of the stuff doesn't take funding. How about using some creativity? Make a community effort. To secure things. You have not community service. What's those community education things that they do?
Yeah.
Or make it mandatory. If you want a school issued laptop to get to me, you need to do an S2Me or something, right? Start this education process because now you need to educate the parents more too. Right. So you can use something free like an S2Me and say, hey, everybody do this, take this, and, maybe start doing information security or cybersecurity as part of a curriculum.
Well, yeah, that would be very helpful, I think, and not wait until like high school, right? Because you do see some of that where they start doing some cybersecurity stuff in high school, but start in kindergarten, right? Like start as soon as they have access to a device. I know, my youngest is in kindergarten, and now he has his own iPad for schoolwork. Well, they should be teaching them and providing like some guidance around that from like you're giving them access to basically everything.
Right. I love the So a couple of people, just to shout out real quick, even though we're not at shout outs yet, but Rachel Arnold is a great advocate for, us getting off our island, the information security people getting off our island. Right. And, I like that piece. And then, when you were mentioning, putting electronics in the hands of somebody who is not trained or doesn't understand the danger in it, like you said, like a kindergartner. Hey, here's an iPhone. Danger,
Right.
And I think of the picture of Chris Roberts in one of our shows where he held up a phone in one hand and a pistol in the other hand. I said, which of these is more dangerous?
No, the phone, just because it's so much more prevalent.
Well, yeah, and it's stealthy, and I mean, there's all kinds of things. And so, but people need to start thinking about that, thinking that this is a life skill, right? And no matter how much I want you to learn these life skills, you have to want to. If you don't want to, it doesn't matter what I say.
Yeah.
I could preach to the wind all day long, try to figure out what language is going to resonate with you, try to get through to you. But if you don't want to learn this, you're never going to learn this, and you do so at your own peril.
Yeah.
Because we could hold these vendors accountable for making better devices if we actually knew the danger. And we do, but if people knew the danger, you wouldn't buy your Tesla that was connected to the internet. Well, maybe Tesla you would, because they actually take security seriously. But some of these things that we allow in our own cars.
Yeah, well, there's been proof of concepts of these cars that have whatever
the autonomous driver thing.
Well, they have the cellular connection where they can be taken over and turned off or disabled while in operation. I mean, there are stories of, hey, we've proven we can do it.
Right. So bringing this back to home network stuff, because what I'd like to do next week too is we'll go a little deeper. I think today, here's a challenge for people. If you haven't logged into your router at home, and I say router, I use that generically because there's actually some firewall functionality there. We're not even going to go into that configuration and other things that you can do with that router. All we're asking right now today is for you to go into your router and change your password.
And,
simple.
If you can change the username, change that as well.
Sure. But just do the password.
And the password is going to be the best for now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you haven't done that, do it. And if you have done that, show somebody else.
Yeah.
We've got friends. I'm going to go talk to my buddy. Actually, this is what I'm going to do. I've never asked Bobby about this. So I'm going to go to Bobby and say, hey, tell me, have you ever changed your router password? I already know what his answer is going to be. He's going to be like, I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah. No, here's what's interesting is I just pulled up the Wi-Fi networks on my laptop, and I can see neighbors' printers unsecured. I could print anything I wanted to their printer, and I know all of the neighbors have young kids. You could put some stuff that they wouldn't want to see.
Well, right? It's funny you mentioned that because I want to get there on this journey that we take. I want to get there to that stuff too, because I was running Kismet on my Raspberry Pi here because that's what weird people do. And I think I had 41,000 networks it had found in my small town within, I think it was maybe 5 days. 41,000. And a lot of that was beaconing, right? So it was, systems looking for networks to connect to.
Okay.
People driving in their cars with their phones that have, that turned on. I would see that Kismet, right? I would also see every Bluetooth, if I've configured Kismet the right way, I would see every Bluetooth that would ever come into range, because that also uses a beaconing. Every access point. So the number, when I turn that off, because it is kind of a resource hog if I'm using Raspberry Pi for other stuff. But we can show that too, and Pi-hole, I think, is another thing that we can show people.
So it's funny. I was thinking about this, and we were talking about, potentially showing some stuff, and I was like, I can't, because my work laptop is on its own network that can't access the router or the firewall or any of the other tools. Those are all set to a IP and MAC address on my home desktop that has its own NIC. So if I'm going to manage it, I have to switch my network connection physically to go over to do it. So clearly I'm a bit of a nerd on that stuff. So I was trying to figure out how I could show some of it, but I think we'll have to talk through it more than anything.
Well, and I can show mine too.
Yeah.
Start with, it sounds really basic, and it sounds like, well, that's it. Just go change my router password. Yeah, do that now.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about step after that, the things behind your router. I would like next week, let's talk about how to find all the crap on your network.
Yeah, I like that. I think the two things that I tell every customer, everybody I talk to, here's the two things you can do. They're going to have the biggest impact on reducing your risk. Change default passwords and use multi-factor everywhere you can.
Yeah.
Just do those two things, and that, that's the easiest way. It's not hard to do those. Google, Microsoft, they make those apps. They're free. They're easy to use. I get that. Okay, well, now I have to open my phone and put in a PIN, open it up and understand what the PIN is to log into my bank. Well, yeah, but the alternative is you have no money.
Well, but a lot of the people that we're talking to about that, they have no idea what you just said.
Well, and true. And obviously I would translate that, right? I wouldn't use exactly that word, the way I just explained it here within
No, I know.
Part 5.
Yeah.
But,
I get you too, man. Because it is really basic. And I think it leads to some of our frustrations. This is really simple to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you're doing it. I'm saying I know I have a tendency to do it. And I think others in our industry do. We know how simple and easy this is to do. So I get so frustrated that you haven't done it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think that's kind of the pitfall or whatever, the trap we fall into, is you get so frustrated and then you talk down to people because you're like, oh my God, how are you not doing this? And then they shut you out, right? They tune you out as soon as you approach them that way.
Or if you, I think, are reflective, you'll realize that they don't understand what I'm saying because I'm not speaking their language. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It'd be like if somebody was yelling at me in Mandarin Chinese.
Yeah, that's a great comparison. I agree.
I would have no idea what the hell they're talking about. And this person might be the dumbest Mandarin Chinese speaker that ever lived. And I'd be like, whatever. I don't get what you're saying. I think that it's so much of it is like that, trying to figure out what's the language and that you will understand. And that's why I am actually going to do that this week, is talk to my buddy Bobby. I know he doesn't speak geek natively.
Yeah. Well, and it's so easy to do. I do try to make a very concerted effort to not do that to people outside, our group, as it were, the tribe. and speak in ways that they can understand. And it's so easy even then. Like I think I've told this story on here before, but when we moved into the current house, we were talking to the neighbors and they were like, so what do you do? And I was like, oh, well, we're information security with PCI QSA. We do this, blah, blah. He's like, okay, look, I'm a salesman. I don't understand anything you just said. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I am so sorry. So went back and said, explained it. And he was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But it's so easy to just like slide back, even when you're trying, I do try to make an effort to not alienate others, because I do know we need everybody's buy-in to secure things. There's 800,000 security professionals out of 300 plus million people that are probably on the internet or, online in some fashion at this point. We can't do it alone.
Right. And this is truly, people, I don't want to freak anybody out, but this is a national security issue.
Oh yeah.
Think about it. If I'm an adversary on the other side of the planet and I can compromise 50% of all the homes in the United States, that's a pretty good asset on my side,
if for nothing else, to do DDoS attacks, right? Even if you're not gonna actually compromise those devices and what they're doing, just the fact that you have control and can just DDoS whatever.
Right.
Think about the Amazon outage earlier. What was that, last week?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Like, think about what the impact was. Now, imagine that if their entire thing went down because 50 million homes were compromised and all those compromised devices started just DDoSing. There's no way they could handle that.
Oh no. Nope. All right. Well, So next week. So that's it. The challenge for people, listeners, change your default password on your router. Yeah. If you've already done that, help somebody else do it.
Yeah.
That's a takeaway. Anybody, pick somebody. Pick your mom, pick friends, whatever. And you don't have to go there physically to do it. You can certainly show them on a Zoom call. Zoom is free, I think, for 50 minutes or 30 minutes. There's all kinds of ways that you can do it. But be creative. Try to reach out and get somebody to help somebody. That's it this week, right? And then maybe, next week we'll show you, okay, if you did that, now the next thing, find all the crap on your network.
Right. Yeah.
And you and I can maybe, hopefully your labyrinthitis is feeling better then, and we can, we'll show a couple tools, simple, free tools that you can use. I was thinking, are there instructions? I wonder if there are instructions for changing the default password on my router.
So that's one of my rocks for it'll probably be, it's going to be Q1 at this point, but is to do some research and find, the top 5 or top 10, what are the most common ISP routers, and putting together easy to understand instructions, the screenshots of, hey, do this, do this, do this. Here's how you do it. So, because there aren't really good resources out there, and doing those parent sessions where teaching, hey, how do you watch what your kids are doing? That's been almost unanimously like that. That's a top request. I don't know how to do it. I can't find how to do it. How do I do it? What should I do? So, I think looking from our standpoint, we're definitely going to be putting some of those things together here over the next couple months to try and help people secure their personal networks.
Yeah, absolutely. I just found the instructions for how to change mine. at CenturyLink. I just put that in the chat, but I'll make that available too, because I think a lot of people, some people might be listening going, I don't even know how to do this. Well, if you haven't changed anything else on your home network, the instructions from CenturyLink are pretty straightforward. You just open a browser, go to HTTP. Yeah, that's right. No S. 192.168.0. It'll bring up a login. Admin will be your username. Password will be taped on the bottom of thingamajobber. Yeah, and then just follow those instructions. So I'll provide that after this too.
Yeah, that's good. And that's the thing is putting those resources together and making it so that it is accessible for people.
Uh-huh. All right. Do we still have time for news?
Probably not. We could just talk through them real quick. So the first one was GoDaddy's employees were used in attacks on multiple cryptocurrency services. That was Krebs. It was a phishing attack on GoDaddy employees. Whoops. It was a pretty interesting read on that one.
Yeah. Oy.
The next one was the worst passwords of 2020, and that was with who was it? It was
Secure World Expo.
Yeah, NordPass, a password manager, released the list of the worst passwords of 2020. There were some new ones that I was surprised to see. Number 10 was Senha, which is Portuguese for password, and I haven't seen that one on there before. But that's actually it was a pretty funny read. I was like, oh, come on, stop.
I thought Million 2 that's a new one on the list too. Just Million and the number 2.
Yeah, and Picture One, that was interesting. That's number 3.
Yeah, where did that come from?
I have no idea. But there's a lot of...
And then Aaron... Yeah. Interesting, man. Sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was... there was a lot of face falling as I was reading through that one.
Yeah, so when you change your default password on your router, do not choose one of these.
Right.
Please.
Yeah. And then the last one was, again, from Secure World, was California approves strongest consumer privacy law in the world. That'll be interesting to see what that actually ends up doing for people, how that's enforced.
We'll have to talk about that. I think we could do a whole show on CPRA.
Yeah, but I think
what they call
it's a good step. I haven't read through the entire law, but I like the fact that it's focusing on giving more kids privacy, things like that.
Well, but my biggest frustration, I'm tired of state laws. I'm tired of state laws that should be regulated federally. This should be a federal approach.
Yeah.
I mean, California is already so damn regulated, and they got such a bad name for it. This should be a federal thing, man. Ticks me off.
I fully agree. Well, and honestly, if it was federal, it would be so much easier for everyone. We would have one to follow, not, what is there? There are 38-ish state privacy laws that are all different.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it makes you wonder. I mean, what the hell are our legislators so busy doing? They're busy politicking and not working, not governing. It's just, It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Just learn how to govern, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those are the news stories.
Awesome.
That's it for this episode 108. It's just crazy that we're at that number. Thank you, Evan. Who you got shout outs for today?
I already said one, Rachel Arnold. Shout out to her because she's a good advocate for trying to us to speak normal people language. And we should all speak normal people language, by the way, because we're all supposed to be somewhat normal. Not that we're not exceptionally, too, just in general. So I think I'm going to do Rachel Arnold and Andrea Hatcher. Do you remember Andrea Hatcher from way back when?
Yeah.
One of our episodes where we did the Women in Security series.
Mm-hmm.
She invited me to speak to her group a while back and sent me a Penn State Lions hat and a Penn State shirt that my 16-year-old daughter has stolen from me already.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to Andrea. She is going to be, so anyone listening, we're trying to, I know FRSecure is trying to reach out to her to figure out, she's going to be a superstar in this industry. So watch out for her. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah. I was really impressed with her. So I'll give one to Pinky, one of our employees.
Oh, yeah.
He stepped up and was able to help out with a really large national retailer while I was out and help answer some questions for him. So shout out to him for helping cover for me while I was literally unable to work. So.
Yeah, that whole team is awesome, man. But yeah, Pinky's great.
So, all right. Well, thank you to all our listeners. You can send us things by email at unsecurity@protonmail.com. If you're the social type, socialize with us on Twitter. I'm at Brad Nye. Evan is at Evan Francine. And the podcast is at UnsecurityKey. And man, I almost made it through the whole thing without stumbling. Be sure to follow Security Studio at Studio Security and FRSecure at FRSecure for more things we do when we do what we do. That's it, and we will talk to you all again next week.
Awesome, brother.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the UnSecurity Podcast. We value our listeners and would love to hear from you. Give us your feedback by emailing us at unsecurity@protonmail.com. That's UNSECURITY@PROTONMAIL.com. Be sure to tune in next week to hear the latest insights from Brad and Evan.